You're with Julian on the Brown Note and the Great MAGA Schism. So every bit of focus on Trump's schism with the MAGA faithful has focused on he who shall not be named, which is interesting because there's actually a lot going on with MAGA at the moment. And it's not just the he who shall not be named element of it either, which is all that the world's media is focusing on, and it is blowing up. So basically I put a piece online about he who shall not be named probably 5 years ago, and it was a very mild piece, and it just involved quotes from press and Wikipedia clippings, nothing in there polemic really. Within hours, I got my first 90-day YouTube strike ban. And the review of that ban took less than 2 minutes for an 8-minute video. And that still sits as a strike against me on YouTube. Now, I got this strike for cyberbullying. And the two questions that I had is, how can you cyberbully a dead person? And who's complaining on his behalf? So anyway, Mr. Epstein is just one of the cardinal sins that have all arrived at once. So we've got the, Trump riding into town and saying we're going to end American wars. We're not going to be the world's policeman anymore. Well, the biggest thing that he's done there is to agree to continue arming Ukraine. So that's a massive no to the MAGA faithful. Because when it comes to Israel, they have a very complicated relationship with what's going on. But when it comes to Ukraine, this was a fairly pro-Putin administration that came into power. Now, I can guarantee you that this whole thing about I'm going to give Russia 50 days to ceasefire in Ukraine has come from Putin. Maybe Putin is like just laughing behind the scenes trying to get Trump a Nobel Peace Prize, which I firmly believe. But they are still arming Ukraine. I think Trump just found out that there's a level of power in America that's above politics, which is the defense industry. And the defense industry has had an absolute bonza the last 3 years. Because every month they've been transferred, like it's not aid to Ukraine. It is American taxpayers donating money to American private defense contractors for all these weapons. So he's now saying that, Europe's going to pay instead. But I think he found out they don't want that gravy train stopped, and they're more powerful than he is. But this is the optics on that are terrible. But the other one is raising the deficit. So his big, beautiful bill massively raised the deficit, and he rode into town with the Dodge thing from Elon Musk. I'm going to cut wasteful government spending, and it's just massively increased the deficit. So that's another thing. In fact, it's only Democrats over the last, 40 years that have ever lowered the deficit. I think every single Republican comes into power claiming that they're going to rein in wasteful spending and then pushes through a raft of tax breaks for the wealthy that massively increases the deficit. So that's not a good look either. Then there's Israel, which is the most complex part of the scenario, because you've got a bunch of Christian Zionists in his cabinet and in the evangelical movement that massively supported him, that are massively for Israel destroying the West Bank and Gaza Strip. But you've also got a huge chunk of MAGA that are very anti-Semitic. Like, they don't even feel one way particularly about Netanyahu butchering people in Gaza. They blame the immigration crisis in America on the Jews. They think that there's a conspiracy that, like, when you hear the words white replacement theory, it's coded anti-Semitic language, because they're really saying that there is a conspiracy by the Jews to replace the whites of Europe and America. So they're in a really strange place now. But having him kowtow to Netanyahu so much is another massive no amongst a lot of the MAGA faithful. And then you've got the the reductions of aid. So to pay for these huge tax breaks for the wealthy in America, they're cutting enormous amounts of aid. A lot of MAGA voters are poor. So they're being actually hit. They were complaining like crazy when Elon Musk Doge was removing their jobs. They didn't like that at all, and that stopped Republicans being able to hold town hall meetings because they were getting yelled at by their own base. But once these cuts really start hitting medical care for millions of very poor MAGA supporters, that's also going to be a massive issue. And then we come back to the ever-exploding Epstein list. I mean, it's surreal in a way because we all said it all the way along. But some of the stuff that's coming out now feels a bit new, and some of it is very disturbing. And it's not going to slow down. So Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal, was it the Wall Street Journal? I think it was the Wall Street Journal, is being sued for $10 billion by Donald Trump for this, what I'm about to read out, which was a 50th birthday greeting around, it sounds like, the time that they first met back in the 90s. Now, there's no way that the Wall Street Journal published this without having every single aspect of it looked into all the way up to Rupert Murdoch. So the fact that they've taken this position, for one thing, the $10 billion is a giveaway. Like, he's suing the Wall Street Journal for $10 billion. It's a total giveaway that this is garbage. There's no way that this will go to court because of the fact of the disclosure that would be involved. So it's a farce that he's taking them to court at all. But and given the fact that he's been paid out by other news organisations for cases he would never have won in court, it's an interesting paradigm. But what's more interesting is that Murdoch would take this line. Now, if you actually read I'm assuming that this is all real, certainly the last bit is, but this is very confronting. This is over the top of the naked lady that Trump drew. Now, Trump came out like our mushroom poisoner in Australia saying, I've never written a drawing in my life, was the iconic quote. And then the internet was flooded with pictures that Donald had drawn over his life, including selling some actual drawings. So he has drawn an awful lot. And he drew a naked lady, and this is the dialogue over the top of it. Voiceover, there must be more to life than having everything. Donald, yes there is, but I won't tell you what it is. Jeffrey, nor will I, since I also know what it is. Donald, we have certain things in common. Jeffrey, yes we do, come to think of it. Donald, enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Jeffrey, as a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. Trump, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. If that doesn't sound like two predators discussing things, I don't know what does. And then Kate Johnson, who is one of the only ones to have accused Donald Trump of underage rape, she's come forward again, and they're basically looking back into a lot of stuff that was publicly known. This is actually from a case. This was actually her words in court that have never been challenged or retracted. Mr. Trump had another girl and I dress as maids and pretend to clean the room. The other girl, Maria, was 12 years old, and Kate was 13 years old. Mr. Trump ordered us to carry out a string of sex acts on each other and on him. After he finished, he said we both could have done better, and then he left. How on brand is it for Trump to have done that and then complained? And that's from her sworn affidavit about the third encounter where Trump raped her when she was 13. And that's never been debunked or retracted and has a case file number. So there's a lot going on, and the schism, I mean, I think the MAGA base care more about the Epstein files being released, or at least because a part of their ethos was always that there's this thing called Hollywood, there's these rich and famous people, including the Clintons, that involve are involved in child sex trafficking and so on, and that Trump was going to come along like the worst possible candidate you could get to come along and solve this issue, being up to his neck in it. But the fact that he was going to blow apart all these institutions that were involved, him not releasing it is probably worse to them than him being a sex offender. I mean, they've pretty much understood that he's been very bad to a number of women. I think 25 different allegations of sexual assault or misconduct or rape. And last year, a judge in America pretty much said out in court that he was a rapist in a defamation trial. So I think they're used to weathering his bad behaviour, but it's the fact that he won't expose them, won't expose this elite cabal of people, which he's obviously up to his neck in. That's worse for them, because it really does optically hammer home that he is part of the... Who knew an elite businessman that's been a billionaire his whole life would be part of the elite establishment? I wouldn't like to be Ghislaine Maxwell in jail at the moment. That's not a very safe place to be. So what the long-term impact on him will be, I don't know, but seeing Murdoch posturing like he's done is very interesting.